Okay, let's dive right in. The word enemy. We all think we know what it means, but what if I told you its real meaning goes way beyond what we see with our own eyes? In today's explainer, we're going to unpack the biblical idea of enemy, and it's a journey, let me tell you, a journey from a cosmic war to an ultimate reconciliation.
God and Us presents Proclamation to the Nation.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to break this down into 5 parts based on our source material. First, we'll nail down who or what the real enemy is. Then we'll look at humanity's original and kind of shocking position in this conflict. After that, we hit the turning point, a radical reconciliation. Then, things get interesting because a new battle starts, from the inside. And finally, we'll look ahead to the promise of a final, guaranteed victory. All right, first things first. To really get what's going on here, we have to totally shift our thinking about what the word enemy even means. It's not about people. It's something else entirely.
Seriously, think about it. When you hear enemy, what pops into your head? A rival at work? A political opponent? Maybe just that person you argue with online? Well, the source material we're digging into today pushes us to look right past the person and see the spiritual force that's really at play.
And the key that unlocks this whole idea is a Greek word, Echthros. Now, on the surface, it just means a hostile adversary. But in this context, it's so much deeper. It points to a fundamental spiritual opposition, a hostility, not to a person, but to God's very nature and his justice. And this verse from the book of Acts is a perfect example. You've got the Apostle Paul confronting a magician. But listen to his words carefully. He doesn't call the man the enemy. He calls him an Echthros, an enemy of everything that is right. See the difference? The fight wasn't with the guy. It was with the spiritual deception working through him. That is the true enemy we're talking about. Okay. So, if the real enemy is a spiritual opposition to what's right, that leads to a pretty startling question, doesn't it? Where does that put humanity in all of this? And the answer from the source is, well, it's blunt. It says that before the huge turning point in this story, all of humanity was in a state of Echthros. We were, by our very nature, enemies of God. Not because of something we did, but because of the state we were in.
The Apostle Paul, in the book of Romans, lays it all out, and he doesn't pull any punches. He describes humanity as being enemies, sinners, and weak. The original source material for this explainer uses words like pecadores and phrakos, but the meaning is crystal clear no matter the language. We're talking about a state of being ungodly, slaves to sin, and just fundamentally cut off from God. This wasn't a small disagreement. It was total opposition.
But right when the conflict seems absolute, when the separation feels permanent, the story takes this incredible, dramatic turn, and it changes absolutely everything. This slide basically shows the whole deal. It's the great exchange. Look at the before column. Enemies, sinners, weak, under wrath. Now look at the after. Reconciled, justified, saved, and at peace with God. The switch is total. It's a complete 180. So the big question is, how? How did this happen? Well, Romans 5 spells it out. And the most important thing to see is that God made the first move. Christ died for us while we were still sinners, while we were still enemies. This wasn't something humanity could earn or negotiate. It was a gift. And this quote from the source material just hits the nail on the head. Nothing, absolutely nothing, made us deserve this love. It was completely unmerited. It was a radical, unconditional love given not because we were worthy of it, but precisely because we weren't. So that's it, right? Humanity is reconciled, the war is over, happy ending. Well, not so fast. The source material shows us that the battle doesn't actually end. It just moves. The conflict shifts from being with God to being within his own people. And that's a whole new level of complicated. Yeah, it really does seem like the logical conclusion, doesn't it? If we're at peace with God, the fighting should be done. But the source introduces this surprising and honestly pretty challenging new reality for the community of believers. You can just feel the heartbreak in these words from the Apostle Paul. He says he's telling them this even with tears. He's weeping. Why? Not because of some enemy outside the gates. He's warning about enemies of the cross who are right there walking among the believers. They're on the inside.
So who are these internal enemies? According to the source, they're not spies or anything like that. It's much more subtle. They're people inside the community whose lives just don't line up with what they say they believe. Their minds are fixated on earthly stuff, their actions don't reflect the gospel, and they end up becoming a living contradiction to the cross. The source uses this powerful farming metaphor. They're like a weed among the wheat. At first, you can't tell them apart, but ultimately they're working against the whole purpose of the field.
But, and this is a huge but, despite this ongoing internal struggle, this whole grand story is building toward one final thing: an absolute, decisive, and guaranteed victory.
The source tells us that even after all the spiritual battles are fought, the victory isn't totally complete. There's still one opponent left on the field. Just one. And this final adversary has to be destroyed for the story to finally be over.
The Bible, in 1 Corinthians 15, gives us a clear timeline for this. It's like a 3-act finale. Act 1 is happening now. Christ reigns until all his enemies are defeated. Act 2, all opposition, every authority and power is destroyed. And the final act, the last enemy, death itself, is finally and permanently destroyed.
And this isn't presented as a maybe or a hopeful wish. It's presented as a certainty. The victory is total, it's definitive, and it gives this entire complex story a foundation of hope, assuring that no matter what the struggles look like now, the final outcome is already decided.
So that brings it all back to us, right here, right now. After going through all of this, we're left with a big question to chew on. If the true enemy isn't other people, but a spiritual force, and if the final battle is against death itself, a battle that's already been won, how does that change the way we look at the conflicts and the struggles we face every single day?